And I'd just like to give an extra special thank you to my Asbantium level patrons, Chris Douglas, Fallon Cortez, and Jamie Ashton. Thank you so much for your support. It's that glorious time that only comes once a year, Eurovision season. It's a huge celebration of music, a party for everybody. Well, except Juiced. Thanks EBU. However, this year, it's my lucky day because Eurovision is a guilty pleasure of mine. And now Doctor Who has come crashing in for a crossover in the form of the Interstellar Song Contest, an episode seeing our heroes, the Doctor and Belinda, take a break from their usual travels to places like Waterloo in order to fix a classic terror plot in space. Oh, and Rylan is there because apparently he's everywhere these days. And then even Graham Norton shows up too, so the gang's all here. As a big Doctor Who and Eurovision fan, the Interstellar Song Contest piqued my interest right from the moment it was first rumoured. After all, Eurovision is so damn popular in Europe, it just felt like a fitting idea to just snap into place. But does this episode actually deliver on that promise? Is it my number one? Or is it Euro Neuro? Well, as always, that's what I'm here to find out. So, without any further ado, join the train, be our guest, let's plot a course for the Interstellar Song Contest. Okay, so I'm aware that a lot of you might not really be familiar with Eurovision, despite it being older than Doctor Who by about 7 years, beginning in May 1956 and running all but 1 year since. You can probably guess which year that was. It's one of the longest running TV programs in the world, and it's basically a cultural exchange of sorts. A bunch of different countries coming together and sending their own representative songs, flying the flag in the hopes of winning, and then hosting the next edition. Or just having a little bit of fun along the way. The event prides itself on this multiculturalism. From Eastern European funk to Wolves of the Sea, it's a melting pot of culture and lovable weirdness. Oh, and Australia is also there, despite it being Eurovision. Don't ask about it, there's a lot of countries that aren't actually in Europe. Don't even look at the milkshake man, because that will raise even more questions. Honestly, Eurovision is a pretty great way to come across new music. I can't lie, it introduced me to Kaja and Baby Lasagna, for example. If you name a genre, it's had representation in Eurovision over the years. Metal, country, electro swing, city pop, club music, and even yodel rap. Hey, I wasn't kidding about it being a melting pot of weirdness. I mean, I don't know where else in the world you'll have a show having ABBA, Celine Dion, Engelbert Humperdinck, Flo Rida and Darude all in common. And despite the UK sucking really bad at Eurovision since before Doctor Who was even revived, the two shows have a fair amount of fans in common, making a crossover like this inevitable. Even though, yes, I know Big Finish already did it. But as I mentioned, the Interstellar Song Contest was always going to be playing with fire, because it had to both be a good Doctor Who episode and a good homage to Eurovision. Did it fail? Oh, just a little bit. So, as part of their attempts to get home, the Doctor and Belinda show up at the so-called Interstellar Song Contest. Eurovision, but in space! Unsurprisingly, they decide to stay for a bit, because Belinda has fond memories of growing up watching it. You and me both, Belinda, even down to the whole having to get into my pyjamas and brush my teeth to stay up for voting. My earliest memory was 2009. What a year. Although I can't say I'd enjoy the Interstellar version. These songs sound terrible, apart from Dugadoo supremacy. I get that Eurovision is inherently campy, God knows it is, but it's also a legitimate song contest, hence the supremacy of countries like Sweden, which single-handedly holds the entire music industry on its back. But it feels like when writing the songs for this episode, Murray Gold didn't quite understand the nuance of Eurovision, and fell into the same view a lot of people have, where it's just all campiness and silliness. I mean, the favourite to win is a song about my big feet? Standards have clearly slipped in 800 years. Eurovision isn't just about silly camp songs, it's a genuine song contest celebrating music, and some of the songs are just absolutely incredible. Hold Me Closer by Cornelia Jacobs is a beautiful, bittersweet song with so much emotion. Euphoria, Fairy Tale and Only Teardrops are some of the best winners of all time for a very good reason, because of their brilliant staging, their energy, incredible vocals and great lyrics. silly songs are a side attraction of Eurovision. They're not the main event, which is actually great songs and great staging, none of which feature in this episode. I mean, again, the favourite to win is My Big Fee. Like, wow, who wrote this? Shakespeare? Yeah, so despite this episode clearly being written by a Eurovision fan, it makes everything so one-dimensional. I mean, yes, you have the traditional cringe hosts and a big elaborate stage. There's no sense of it feeling like a scaled up Eurovision. It ends up as a very weak, pointless background setting. It's cool to see so many aliens in the crowd akin to Rings of Akaton or End of the World, but it feels so flat and anti-world building. It's hardly a new tomorrow. Despite it being supposedly one of, if not the most expensive Doctor Who episode ever made, it doesn't feel like it or come across as visually interesting enough. I just don't think this episode really does space Eurovision justice in my opinion. Although, hey, to be fair, this year's Eurovision was terrible, so at least it's a good homage to that. Right as the train wreck is about to start, even with a cryogenically unfrozen Ryan appearing in what must be a horrible experience, you know, having to host Eurovision every single day of his life, that's the kind of thing Torchwood highlights as being awful in To the Last Man. Yet here it's just kind of glossed over as him like coming home. Anyways, right as the train wreck is about to start, the production is hijacked by Kid, a Helion, and his girlfriend Wynn, who is like a bad cosplay of Stephanie Verkitten. Sorry girlie, nobody can match the Dark Angel. Marry me, by the way. Oh, and of course Wynn gets to be morally conflicted and hesitant with a womanly, compassionate heart of gold, and she's just been led astray like a puppet on a string. Just let her be evil, honestly. We really just need that sometimes. Anyway, these Helions are a shunned species people don't like to employ and are blatantly racist towards. So unsurprisingly, Kid here is evil.
I'm only doing the things you expect of me.
I mean, he's got a point there, you can't lie. These two are protesters from a home that has been destroyed and their people stereotyped into villainy through a Gorman-esque smear campaign. Naturally, this brings about a lot of unfortunate parallels to Palestinians in the current cultural flashpoint that is the Israel-Palestine conflict. That has been ongoing for decades now. It's a horrible conflict with so much death, but the timing of this episode couldn't be worse given the ongoing controversy around Israel being allowed to compete in Eurovision, despite sometimes sending political songs, which is a breach of the rules, and the comparison to Russia, which was banned for its conflict with Ukraine. I'm not here to make political statements of my own, I'm not a political channel, I'm definitely not a politician, but the politics of this episode are very confused and messy. The messaging wraps around to being a bit tone-deaf, and supporting the EBU and the corporation in a very Kablam-esque way. Despite trying to be a bit more pro-Palestine in its approach, it really does feel a bit counterintuitive. Talk about making your mind up. Yes, the reason these Helion people are literally demonized is because their planet was brought out by the corporation. Wow, what a creative name there. And ravished to harvest their special poppy as honey flavouring. So, you know, you see that and you think, oh damn, what a horrible and sympathetic plight. These people lost everything. It's like how places across the world are exploited for their natural resources, like gold mining and timber felling, absolutely destroying the Amazon rainforest. Or the blood diamond trade and oil mining in a lot of already impoverished African nations. And hey look, the latter was literally the prequel story for last week's episode. So how does the Interstellar Song Contest represent this Helion plight? As something that can be solved with a little 90-second song at the end. Yeah, that's it. As I said, it's very much like Kablam in that regard, where things have clearly been forcibly escalated to violence, yet the episode acts like the solution is easy, passive protest, despite it being far too late for that. That's not me justifying violence, of course, since Kid isn't targeting the actual corporation that's causing the genocide, but the whole song fixing everything is just a very juvenile and naive solution in this episode. The Doctor never even condemns the corporation either, he barely acknowledges this horrible destruction, despite previous incarnations like the 9th or 12th Doctors being first in line to immediately go and shut down these kinds of evil corporations. I mean, that was literally the whole point of Oxygen, after all. But no, this episode is very much just, these two Helions are bad, but with the power of love and friendship, we can come together to protest these genocides. You just have to be one of the good ones. Meanwhile, the corporation gets off scot-free. It's so funny going from Andor's incredible nuanced presentation of rebellion, oppression, and the moral grey areas of fighting for a cause, with Mon Mothma, Luthen Rael, and Saw Gerrera as varying levels of rebellion that all have to coexist for success, to then this secondary school debate club, drama club level of political storytelling saying, "Ooh, violence bad, just sing." It's terrible in my opinion. No matter who you draw parallels to, even if it wasn't meant to draw parallels to Palestine and Israel, anything like that, there's no good way to spin the politics of this episode. It's just one of those that annoys everyone across the political spectrum because it has no actual meaning or message to it. It tries to make a statement, only to contradict itself constantly and make a complete mess and be all very surface level. So basically what I'm saying is, welcome back, Kablam! So, our Hellion villains flush everyone into slow-mo space, including the Doctor, and they all die together. Gee, what an evil act, killing so many people at once. Oh wait, it's actually just like Empire of Death, where such a comically large amount of death is so obviously going to get reversed by the end. And then it does. It's a miracle. Yes, this escalates things way too quickly and dramatically that it devalues a lot of the tension, even if it is only phase 1 of the whole rise up plan, because the rest of the plan is actually a delta wave or something. It clearly doesn't matter much to the story because the Doctor ends up just zapping it with a sonic screwdriver to stop it. So I guess that's still just going to remain as a Deus Ex Machina for everything. You can just wave the sonic and fix everything. I will give this episode props though for splitting up the Doctor and Belinda, with the former believing the latter is lost, and we get to see how dangerous and angry he can be when he's solo. That's interesting to see, although again they ruin it by the end, but we'll get to that later, I promise. Oh yeah, and after some random Susan visions for no reason, the Doctor also does a Princess Leia in The Last Jedi and yeets himself back from space, conveniently rescued and resuscitated by Tech Man and Nurse Man, who are the walking plot devices that make half the episode possible. I don't know, what a shame we don't have a companion with situational skills the script could use. Look, I get that Belinda isn't here for this sequence, but you can always just, separate them afterwards to still have the whole split narrative thing, while also giving Belinda something to do. But I digress. Belinda has to sort things out on her own for a bit, and we have a scene similar to Rose in End of the World, where it finally dawns on the companion just how far away from home she really is, and she has no idea if she'll even get back to her family at this rate. It's a nice character moment, those seeds of doubt and fear and her panicking a little bit. It's really compelling and great to see, although we don't see her like this for long enough. Tell me more about Belinda as an individual and how she reacts to these situations, please. It's what we need. She's backsliding into being like Ruby 2.0 at this point. After some plot contrivances and the convenient actions of Tech Man doing lots of computer stuff and changing the code, the Doctor waltzes into the control room to lecture Kid, and again waves the sonic screwdriver around to fix everything. Then he starts torturing Kid, despite knowing he can undo all this apparent death. That's cool again to show the Doctor giving into his darker impulses of revenge and anger, like A Town Called Mercy or Dinosaurs on a Spaceship. It's great to see him going to the dark side, but the script hardly ends up condemning him for it. The Doctor isn't some flawless perfect hero, but when he breaks from his character this severely, there has to be some level of consequence to it. The Ninth Doctor trying to torture and later kill the Dalek in, well, Dalek, is a moment where we see this vengeful dark protagonist trying to execute his enemy in cold blood, showing his companion a whole new side of him and making him re-evaluate what he's doing. The 10th Doctor has his infamous Time Lord Victorious moment, going too far and massively regretting it. Hell, the 12th Doctor even had his whole arc questioning whether he was a good man because of all of his dark actions during Series 7 and 8. There have been loads of stories that show the Doctor doing dark things. They always have a feeling of consequence or condemnation. It's not like there's a halo around him. Here, however, Belinda's trust isn't broken. She forgives him incredibly quickly, and the Doctor doesn't even show any kind of sympathy for the root causes of Kid's issues. He even threatens to do it all over again because he freely acknowledges the ice is still in his heart. And no one bats an eyelid at that because, he's torturing a bad guy, so that makes it okay, right? There's a real lack of consequence or focus on this. I'm not arguing that he's not justified in his anger, but I am saying it feels too inconsequential and it's wrongly hand-waved away rather than informing his character or being a big deal like it usually is. You can't eat your salad and have it too. It's only very briefly acknowledged at the end as the Doctor says, he was triggered because of how the Time Lords died. Because hey, remember, he's the last of the Time Lords. Again, not like the last 4 times he was the last of the Time Lords. No, this one is definitely for real this time. Oh wait. So now that he's brushed off the villains like they're nothing, the Doctor cobbles together a magic gizmo to tractor beam all the floating attendants back in, and then his 2 plot device sidekicks revive everyone one by one, which probably took a very, very long time by the way. Also, remember when people actually got to die in Doctor Who. Even, just 1 or 2 people here and there, but nope, not even these drones get to kill anyone. So they're all kind of pointless. It's funny how even after all these horrors, being floating in the cold depths of space and being near death for like an hour plus, everyone is just happy to go right back to being party mood and being in a Eurovision crowd. I mean, I think they'd be a little more traumatized than that. Think about it, if you undid 9/11, I doubt everyone would happily go back into the towers to continue on with their shift. But no, everyone just goes back to being a normal crowd, and Rylan says, okay, well, the contest is cancelled, but favourite twin Cora can sing a little song since she's a secret Hellion who wants peace, and that's what's really important because love is forever. Down with one song, they defeat racism, topple a corporation, and end a genocide. And then everybody clapped. Yeah, it's just kind of ridiculous that this is apparently the solution, even though ironically the EBU would ban a song like this for being too political. So you can't exactly send a protest song to Eurovision unless you're very sly about it, like Ukraine a few years ago when they did, 1944, or you're Let 3, who just went for it. Again, I just find it so weird that the Doctor doesn't seem to care all too much about actually toppling this evil corporation. That whole situation is still going on. Now we just get an emotional montage of the planet burning, which changes nothing and will change nothing, but at least everyone gets to live happily ever after. Yeah. That's rich. And then we get to the end of the episode, with Graham Norton conveniently appearing as an exposition hologram and telling us that Earth had its lights off moment on the 24th of May 2025, which we've obviously known the whole time, but the Doctor and Belinda haven't, so they're now catching up to us. Also wait, does this mean that Rylan is the last human in existence? How did they cryogenically freeze him if the world disintegrated? I get that they wanted to save the whole destroyed planet reveal for the ending, but it's weird that this goes unaddressed and he's just there. I guess there are no rules. At least Graham Norton is just a magic hologram. That vaguely makes more sense. I know it's nitpicky, but it's weird inconsistencies like these that just muddle things and cause confusion about the actual main story arc. It feels like this episode was written in a vacuum, and then these elements were shoehorned in to try and make it fit into the storyline, despite them raising way more questions than they do give us answers. I guess in 2025, Rylan just decided to be quirky and cryogenically freeze himself with unit technology, and got really lucky that the Earth then exploded so he could get picked up by some aliens, and then they all decided to make space Eurovision for reasons. Because, I don't know, what's another year? It just doesn't really make any sense to me. It's like they wanted these familiar Eurovision faces, but couldn't figure out how to match it with the storyline itself. In any other series, it would be completely fine. But when your whole season arc is about how the Earth exploded and everybody died, it's weird to have an episode where a random TV presenter somehow survived. Again, it's messy and it doesn't work. But do you know what does work? Those like and subscribe buttons, they definitely work. Go ahead, try them. Speaking of shoehorned in messy scenes that make little sense and don't work, in the calm after the storm, we find out who Mrs. Flood is. Oh boy. After appearing in cameos throughout the season and last season, she appears within the crowd here, using the Vindicator for her own purposes. And then, in a mastermind genius plan, she accidentally dies because her brainstem gets frozen and then she regenerates. No, sorry, actually she bi-generates, because I guess that whole thing wasn't as rare as it apparently was. So lucky. Russell clearly wanted to make it work, despite it being an annoying gimmick that causes too many questions, and I don't like him for that. At least before, it could be explained as, I don't know, being part of the Toymaker's weird reality-bending rules, or that convenient salt at the end of the universe. But now I guess anyone can bi-generate, I can't wait for my turn. At least it's used somewhat interestingly here, because this new Rani treats Mrs. Flood like a weak servant, rather than her own equal. It's a cool idea for multi-Time Lord incarnations. Oh yeah, Mrs. Flood is the Rani, by the way. Kat was right all along, so go and listen to the Says Who podcast and give her some credit for that. Also, you're all welcome, by the way, because I clearly summoned this return into existence by making a whole video about how it would never happen. I guess after years of watching two best friends play, I absorbed some of Pat's ability of crazy talk. Why me? Anyway, okay, there's a lot to unpack here. Clearly Davis wanted a big regeneration reveal Time Lord shock like the Master in Utopia, but then realised he still needed Mrs. Flood in the finale because of her appearing everywhere before, so he made Juno write in this bi-generation instead. Also, why does this big character reveal happen in front of two random side characters with no idea what's going on? She's on this big dramatic return speech and going on about being the Rani, and they're just there okay. I know it saves another build-up finale episode like in season 1, but it's just baffling how they have her actually return, and why does she even need to come back? Mrs. Flood barely acted like the Rani, which I guess is part of the story here, but it just feels like a glop shito reveal for the sake of it. Just like last finale, which had Sutek return in name only. So with that to go off, it doesn't inspire hope. You know how a lot of people really liked Spyfall Part 1 and Fugitive of the Jadoon right after they aired? Because they had a wild reveal that made everyone forget about how mediocre or outright bad the episode was up until that point? Yeah, that's my feeling with the Interstellar Song Contest, which relies upon its 2 returns to cover up an incredibly weak and disappointing episode. As a Eurovision pastiche, it's a complete failure, completely missing the appeal of the contest outside of the surface level silliness and campiness that it gets stereotyped as. As a Doctor Who episode, it's mediocre, and sure it's capable, but it's not very interesting or innovative. It's supposed to be the most elaborate and expensive Doctor Who episode of all time, but the aliens just aren't very creative. It's not like we have Sycorax or Slitheen mixed in with a crowd. Rings of Axton was a lot better at showing diverse aliens. These, on the other hand, feel like a huge step down from that. The Interstellar Song Contest also completely fails at trying to be some brave political narrative, because it tries to push some centrist, passive protest message that had the incredible misfortune of airing just days after the end of one of the tightest, most compelling and well-written sci-fi shows of all time. So naturally there are always going to be some very unfavourable comparisons to be drawn with how they approach very similar instances of planetary destruction for natural resources and genocide, since Andor is obviously something better. Seeing the 15th Doctor get dark is interesting, but it gets completely wasted as it's hand-waved away with little to no consequence. I mean, right at the start of the season, Belinda points out how the Doctor is dangerous and how scared she is of him. She outright says she won't fall for his charm, only for her to be scared of him for 5 minutes here, before then falling for his charm and letting the literal torture go unaddressed. I'm just gonna come out and say it, the Interstellar Song Contest is terrible and deserves an E grade. It's just all over the place. It's visually unremarkable to me, the writing is very basic, and the characterization is laughable. It relies on cameos and an ending reveal to plaster over a very weak episode, and even then they don't make sense or feel shoehorned in. The Susan stuff isn't a wonderful turn of a beloved character, it's a laughably goofy series of visions. I just think this episode fails in every category, especially compared to the rest of season 2, which has been very consistent and great. But hey, at least this episode gave us Dagger Do. But what do you think of the Interstellar Song Contest? Did it rise like a phoenix, or did it have you running scared? Which, by the way, is like the worst Eurovision winner of the last 20 years. Let me know in the comments, and also let me know if you got a Harbinger this week. Come on, give me the good news, Duncan. 2 in a row?
Ooh, that's a
double
bingo.
It's a double
Bingo.
all the way. Whoa, that's so intense.
As always, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye. And I'd just like to give a special thank you to my Asbantium level patrons, Chris Douglas, Fallon Cortez, and Jamie Ashton, my Platinum level patron, Matthew Burns, and all my Gold level patrons, Ben Salmon, Daniel Shilato, James Alea Waterhouse, and Seb Falco. Thank you so much for your support.